Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, we're doing a little bit of a news roundup as there's some stories that have come out this weekend surrounding some fun players. So we're going to be talking about Puka Nacua. We're going to be talking about Bryce Young and the Panthers. We're going to be talking about the Cardinals offense, and we've got some other updates to be talking about today. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, so welcome in, everyone. Glad to see you in the chat this morning. Harry, Snowman, Jamie, Anthony, Dustin, Ryan. Thank you all very much for tuning in. And if you're listening on the podcast as well, thank you for catching the episode after release, of course, as well. Make sure you find the Wake and Take podcast via the link in the description. You guys, let's go ahead and start talking some football. We'll start things off. We'll just kind of go. We'll just go in the order of my show sheets as I found stuff this morning. So we'll see how it goes. Actually, no, we won't go in order of my show sheet. We'll start with the Brandon Aiyuk update. As he did appear on a podcast that was released this weekend. However, it appears that the podcast might have been recorded before it was released. I mean, as some podcasts go, especially the highly produced ones. So here is what Brandon Aiyuk said in the Pivot podcast earlier this week. And it was really just about, basically he was asked, where do you think you're going to be playing next year? And he said, if I were to take a guess, probably a Niners uniform. But if not a Niners uniform, probably a Washington Commanders uniform. And if not a Commanders uniform, then probably a Steelers uniform, which is basically everything that we've been hearing up to this point anyway, right? It's probably the 49ers, and if it's not, then it's the Commanders, and if it's not the Commanders, then it's the Steelers, basically showing that really we know nothing, and everything is just happening behind these closed doors. But Brandon Aiyuk did kind of clarify what was told to him when that TikTok was going around when he told Jaden Daniels that the 49ers didn't want him anymore. He said that the 49ers told me that they didn't think that we were on the same page and that they didn't believe that we were going to be on the same page. And that was about it at the time. But it's just part of those contract negotiations, trying to sway stuff in either direction. So whether that's 100% true or not, I guess that's still to find out. I feel like right now I'm in the right place, in the right spot, with the right quarterback, but we're not on the right terms. So we'll kind of see what happens there in terms of these negotiations. Again, I do believe that this podcast was recorded before the meeting that he had on Thursday or Friday of last week, where Tom Pelissero reported that, the meeting went really well, that Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers did kind of come to some sort of amicable agreement and that they were going to take some time off before July 4th and then kind of come back to negotiate again probably next week. So that's probably where things are still at now, but it's still just very cool to hear Brandon Aiyuk's thoughts on the situation, especially to have the curtain peeled back a little bit more. It wasn't necessarily that the 49ers told him that they didn't want him anymore. They told him that, basically this is our best offer, right? That's what was told to Brandon. And he didn't think that, that was enough for him. So that's probably where he reads into it, is like, oh, they don't want me then. They don't want me at where I want to value myself. Therefore, they don't want me at all. Seems not really to be the case. Everything we're hearing still shows that the 49ers want Brandon Aiyuk. They just don't want to pay him as much as Brandon Aiyuk wants. So at some point, something's going to give. Again, the Wake and Take thought here is that it's still probably going to be the 49ers. As Brandon Aiyuk said, I think the way I'm wrapping my head around this situation, and I'll continue to believe this, is that everything will be held together for the San Francisco 49ers this season. Then next year, there's an out on Deebo Samuel's contract where they can trade him or just, not like they can free up some cap with getting rid of Deebo Samuel, moving on from him, whether it be a release or a trade. And I think that's probably where the 49ers are at right now. They're coming off of a Super Bowl loss. They want to keep the band together as much as possible. So I think they'll be able to do that. Next year, though, is where the cap really does become an issue. They have enough cap space this year to give Brandon Aiyuk really whatever he wants. They have over $30 million, and I doubt that Brandon Aiyuk is looking for that much. He said the Amon-Ra range was around $28 million. So they have the money for an Amon-Ra contract for this season at least. It's next year where things get a little bit murky, and that's where I think the 49ers will be moving on from Deebo next year, and a la bringing in, the Ricky Pearsalls and the Jacob Cowings, replacing Deebo with a more, man-beating, route-running type wide receiver, and letting Christian McCaffrey maybe soak up some of those Deebo screens. Deebo, as you guys know, incredible player, but I could see why the San Francisco 49ers would want to move on from him at this point in his career. He costs a lot of money, and Brock Purdy is the type of quarterback that, yes, of course, Deebo Samuel's awesome, but all he can really do is these kind of short routes and be the yak monster. And, they can kind of move on from that. As much as it sucks, they can kind of move on from that. It'll be okay. So I think that's where their head's at right now. And I think that's where we'll end up landing. But if not, I do just want to go ahead and say I don't think that Brandon Aiyuk on the Commanders is worth anywhere near his value right now on the 49ers. So again, I just say I don't think it's worth taking the risk. There's so many valuable wide receivers that you can get for you can trade Brandon Aiyuk for and get something enormous on top. You could also one of my favorite moves has been trying to use Brandon Aiyuk to maybe get a Rome Odunze or a Malik Neighbors, seeing what I can add on top. But either way, Brandon Aiyuk will never be an alpha. Like even if he's the wide receiver one on the team, this is his peak, right? A lot of his stuff came from efficiency last year and just being a part of the San Francisco 49ers offense. He's an incredible talent, but you can find him, top 15 prices really wherever you look. And I just think that's a touch too far. I think he's valued at his ceiling. Whether or not he returns to San Francisco or not, I would much rather be looking to offload him for another wide receiver and seeing what kind of cherries I can get on top, or maybe even switching to another position if that's what's needed. But that is where we're at on the Brandon Aiyuk situation. Again, we'll continue to update you guys on this. It sucks that as that bearded prince points out in the chat, can this Aiyuk stuff be over already? Just sign soon. I need new news. I agree with you. It sucks having to report on this all the time, but that's just the off season. Hello, July. At least we're in July now, though, right? Only a couple more months here, and then we finally get real football. Camps will be here soon, and hopefully Brandon Aiyuk will just sign the damn contract. So anyway, that is the Brandon Aiyuk situation as of now. Here is the Panthers right now. And this was actually an article on kind of Jonathan Brooks, but a lot was said about Bryce Young as well. Either way, I feel like my thing should have probably just been the Panthers logo, which is actually what we'll just put up for this. As Dave Canales has kind of just come out and said a lot about what he's expecting from the Panthers offense this season, and really just kind of peeled the curtain back a little bit about just the team building and the way him and his staff have kind of tackled this offseason. So here's some quotes, and it's a long little article just about this stuff, but I think it's just some really, really good information. There's also a clip that I'd like to play of him just speaking. There's something about just the way he speaks and understands offenses and talent that it really, really does kind of, I guess, light a light bulb in my head. He's been one of the head coaches that I've been concerned about. A lot of times we see these really good coordinators take the head coaching job and they're not really ready. Dave Canales seems ready to me the more and more I just kind of read into him and hear from him and everything. Yeah, of course, it's obvious. Obviously, you could say nice things and you have to back it up on the field. But I really he just seems very mature and just kind of his grasp on this team and teams in football in general just really does seem immaculate. But anyway, here we go. Here's what he said about the Panthers offense. It all starts with the run game and having our guards I don't feel like naming names in there because I love our backfield. Adding Jonathan Brooks, an opportunity came to us with a really talented guy. And again, depth, talent, just keep adding key pieces. Challenge your roster. That's what this draft and this offseason was all about. I feel confident that we'll be able to have a successful run game, which for me opens everything else up, which is awesome. You love hearing that. We kind of already expected this as well. We saw in Tampa that Dave Canales really did use Rachaad White not only as a pass catcher, but just, using that run game in general to open up the field a bit for Baker Mayfield. That's what we expected, especially when they made the trade up to get Jonathan Brooks. That really did kind of signal a lot for us, and that's why a lot of people have been heavily drafting Jonathan Brooks. It is interesting, though, as his value right now does kind of vary. He's RB10 on Keep Trade Cut and RB15 on Player Profiler. I think RB10 is a touch too high. I'm not going to lie. But if you can get Jonathan Brooks for his value, right, a late first from 2024 or just a 2025 first, if you can manage it, a couple seconds, that's where I would like to pay for him. I don't really want to take any of these other top 10 running backs and tier down. And I'm not really sure which running backs in that range I would maybe look to tier up with. Maybe a James Cook could be an interesting one to try to get to Jonathan Brooks land. But either way, it seems like he's kind of separated himself a bit too far from Trey Benson to where it's a little harder to buy him at RB10 price tags, especially since we know for a fact, more than likely, right? I guess maybe not for a fact, we more than likely know that Jonathan Brooks is not going to start the season well, and maybe not at all. And so with that being said, I am holding off on buying Jonathan Brooks as much as I like the talent and how much I like the opportunity that's going to be coming his way in the future. I think that there will still be another buying opportunity for him, whether it be Chuba Hubbard gets a lot of snaps in the early season that has kind of faded Jonathan Brooks' usage, whether it be he lands on short-term IR, or whether it be the Panthers just don't actually take the step forward and the offense sucks and you don't really want that running back. But either way, I see Jonathan Brooks sliding again to like RB 15-ish, which is then where I'd be looking to buy. But either way, I do expect a lot of volume to go to him, especially, 2025 and end of this season when he does fully get healthy and hopefully the offense starts clicking. And I do want to buy him at some point. I just don't think the time is now. Dave Canales did go on in this interview to talk of Bryce Young. This is what he said. I'm just excited about the talent. It's everything that we saw from over a year ago when we were doing the draft evaluation. It's all there. It's all still there. So it's like, wait, the guy's athletic. He can get the ball out quickly. He's a leader. He communicates well. Like, oh, he's got everything we need. All right, Bryce, just do your part. Do your 1/11th. Do the quarterback part. You're the point guard, and everybody else will do what's theirs. And then we could dissolve the pressure of you've got lead, you've got to do this and all of this. You're the one. That's just not true. I've never seen that model of football work and win. In Seattle, we never put it all on Russ's plate. So that's not the model we're going to try to create in Carolina. So, that's really good news. It sounds like he wants to do as much as possible to take pressure off of Bryce Young's plate, whether it be by, of course, leaning into the run game. But as we'll find out at a clip in a minute, that also he's just talking about creative schemes for the offense as well. And also just leaning into what he sees from Bryce Young on the practice field. He did go on to talk about building this team in general, and he says that he knows turning around a 2-win club is no easy task, but he goes on to say, I see a great combination of experience, high football character, and talent in spots. Now, there's a reason that we're 2-15, and we have to continue to bring more talent into our roster so we can fill out the depth of it. The great teams that I've been on in Seattle over the years, up and down, you had depth. And I think that's really where we are. Can we establish our starters? Can we establish depth? And then we've got a ways to go. So it sounds like he is just doing what he can to focus on Bryce Young and the run game, and then is going to work on depth for the rest of this in terms of team building, which is, of course, how every kind of manager runs their team. But I did want to play this clip. This is Dave Canales also just talking about Bryce Young in general, and I thought it was very interesting. If it will load. Maybe. It's like it's pulling up a different video for some reason. Well, maybe I will not play this interview. So strange. Or is it just over here? Hold on. I will figure this out. This is interesting. It's like, it was this video. It was earlier, just like a 30-second one, and these guys weren't.
Dave Canales, he did wonders with Baker Mayfield. Now he has Bryce Young. And I think one thing to key in on, last year the Panthers had this, quote, all-star coaching staff with a lot of different perspectives coming together. Dave Canales' staff has a lot of guys that he has coached with before, a singular vision. And so there's been a lot of positive reviews about how Bryce is getting one voice, not so many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. And so that has been something that they've seen from him. One person told me there's been more upbeat and positive spirit from Bryce Young than they saw all of last year. Now, does that translate in a better year? We're going to see in September, but the Panthers are surrounding him with a simpler vision, and they're also surrounding him with big offensive figures like Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis to try to protect him in the inside to get the ball out to those playmakers like Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, who they brought in this offseason.
Cameron Wolf, never terrible Hunt.
Yeah, so again, I have no idea where that clip came from. That was not the one I selected for this show. And I have no idea where the clip that I was going to play went, to be completely honest with you. When I was preparing the show sheets and found this article, a completely different video was highlighted and featured. And now, 2 hours later, they have changed the feature video, and I cannot find the interview surrounding Dave Canales. It was really, really well spoken. And I guess I'll try to remember what he talked about because I can't find it at all. Even went to Twitter to see whatever. The internet. Am I right? It changes too quickly. But basically, Dave Canales said in his interview on the article that I pulled up with the video that for some reason I played and wasn't the video that I watched earlier attached to that article. Basically what he said when he's watching these practices, he is looking for anything that shows some sort of confidence from Bryce Young. He says when he sees, him dig his back foot in and release it with strength and quickness, that he wants to lean into that particular play, make that play possible with different, wide receiver sets and in general, really just trying to make different iterations of plays where Bryce Young feels comfortable and kind of building a playbook around him. And when I heard him say that, it's very, very impressive to me, because one thing I talk about when I say that I do value coaches that are good, and I feel like I can kind of tell what makes a good coach, is the fact that they look into their talent and they build around that talent, as opposed to getting just stuck in their head and trying to stick with their ways of what they've had success in the past. You have to build around your personnel. That's the most important thing. And so the fact that he is doing that he's, it's sounding like designing an entire playbook really around Bryce Young and what he can do confidently, that really does speak volumes to me. And I think that will really, really tremendously help Bryce Young's development. He talked about in the interview how he did the same thing with Baker Mayfield last year, how really just all through training camp, he was making notes of when Baker Mayfield displayed confidence and seemed good in his plays. And then he would just come up with different iterations of those types of plays, whether it be in different formations, bringing in different wide receivers, yada, yada, yada. But either way, he is leaning into what his quarterback feels most comfortable with and building around that. And I think that that's incredible. And so I do want to say, and we've been saying it, I think everyone's been saying it really, bye Bryce Young. He's quarterback 20 right now on Keep Trade Cut, quarterback 22 on Player Profiler. What can you do? Like literally, even if he sucks, right? He's not going to go any lower. He's still they're not going to get rid of him, right? Even last year was much better than people remember. I mean, he still had almost 2,500 yards. Didn't have too many turns. I mean, obviously he was up there, but for a rookie season with everything that was going on in Carolina, it wasn't that bad. It sounds like things are going to be a little bit better this year. They've, of course, surrounded him with a ton more weapons. They've brought in a better coach, a little bit more offensive mind. I mean, we talked about it last year, right? I hate Frank Reich. I hate Frank Reich because he killed Matt Ryan's career. I never trusted him to be a good quarterback developer. He had failed time and time again in Indianapolis, especially in the quarterback department. Why we thought he would be able to do anything with Bryce Young, I have no idea. But Dave Canales has, now made a career off of kind of revitalizing some of these quarterbacks. I know Bryce Young's an actual young one with a ton of meat left on the bone. He was the first overall pick for a reason. I think that we should be taking him at his value right now and getting him on our dynasty teams. So yeah, that is the Bryce Young and Panthers stuff. We'll go ahead and move on now to Jordan Addison, as he is hyping himself up this year, as is Kevin O'Connell. Jordan Addison basically came out and said that he is expected to take a big step forward in year 2 and that he has been working on a ton of different things. And head coach Kevin O'Connell came out and said this: Jordan Addison had as good of an offseason program as you can ask for. He's a guy that had a ton of success in year 1, and really from a standpoint of getting a little stronger, getting a little bit more comfortable, playing through contact and still playing with the great burst and transition that he has, you saw some real growth there this spring. So that's awesome already. You hear Kevin O'Connell talking up how much practice he's been putting in and how good he looks at camp. Jordan Addison kind of goes on as well. Last year, I wasn't confident in my releases. I wasn't being decisive. I didn't have a plan when I was coming up to the line. I was just freelancing, trying to make something work. So I think that's also really good to hear. Of course, you like to hear the self-awareness. And it sounds like even last year, Jordan Addison didn't have his head completely in the game, on his way to nearly 1,000 receiving yards and finishing as a solid wide receiver in our leagues, especially in the points per game department. Had 13, was 30th in points per game, which is not too bad for a rookie wide receiver. This is a high volume passing offense, and the big thing to note here is TJ Hawkinson is probably going to be injured, at least for the early part of the year. So Jordan Addison should have a ton of volume going his way while the Hawk is out. I will say and express some concerns. I do not like Jordan Addison's price tag right now, really at all. I think, at the end of the day, he probably constitutes a hold unless you can get a good enough return. I do think his value of wide receiver 21 on Player Profiler, wide receiver 25 on Keep Trade Cut, is right around his ceiling for a wide receiver 2 on a team. This is obviously like the T. Higgins range. So I don't know how much higher he can go, to be completely honest. So I'm not necessarily buying him. But if you have him, I can make the case to just hold on to him this year and see what happens, because I could see him starting off the year pretty hot while Hawkinson is out. And then maybe you could flip him. But, if like a Christian Watson, a Jameson Williams, or maybe even one of these win now wide receivers and like a cherry on top, like a Cooper Kupp or a Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs trade comes into your inbox for Jordan Addison, I do think I would make that move. as much as I like JJ McCarthy, I don't really think that he is someone that can sustain 3 pass catchers. And the way I'm still going to look at this Vikings offense is it's Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, then Jordan Addison. And of course, Jordan Addison's still going to have some weeks, but to be valued in the top 25 to me, I think is a touch too high, at least in terms of trying to buy this asset. So, but, I am buying the hype as well. I mean, it sounds like he is taking some strides into year 2 and should be really, really good. It's just how much volume can really be there for a player on the same team as Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, and really even pass catching running backs to a certain degree. Of course, he'll have his spike weeks. We saw it last year, but he'll also have some low weeks as well, like we saw last year. I mean, last year in particular, week 15, 29 points. Week 16, 1 point, right? Like it back-to-back weeks, a 30-pointer to a 1-pointer. And I think that's a lot of what we can expect going forward as well, especially probably with a Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy-led offense. Unless an injury happens, he's going to be second or third in the pecking order, and he's valued, a little bit higher than that. So it's a little bit of a hold/sell situation for him, in my opinion. But either way, it sounds like he's making some strides this offseason, and hype is building. The next bit we have to talk about here is Amari Cooper, and not too much to say here. I just like to take note when opponents say something about, other players. And Darius Slay has come out and, backed up Amari Cooper and kind of his contract holdout right now. Darius Slay said, I really be thinking he's the most underappreciated receiver in the league. I'm seeing right now that Cleveland don't want to pay him, and they need to pay that man that money. A guy that has been a consistent 1,000-yard receiver and has been doing his thing, and people still don't give him credit, is really Amari Cooper. He's really the one that's really being slept on. He's been a consistent receiver since he's been in the league, and he's been dominating. He's really the only receiver that really, I truly think, has a true route tree and can run all the routes. A lot of guys have special abilities, can run faster or be taller, because they're bigger than you. But Amari Cooper, off the line of scrimmage, he's amazing. After the catch, he's amazing. And he can, of course, attack the ball. Again, I just like to take note when defenders hype up players on offense. Those are the people who have literally, especially on a whole other team, right? These players have nothing to gain by hyping up a player on the other side of the ball on another team. That shows that Amari Cooper is very well respected among defenders in the league, and very well respected, of course, by one of the better corners in the league, Darius Slay. That speaks volumes to me, and it just makes me want to buy Amari Cooper just in case, right? Yeah, one of my reasons I'm hesitant with Amari Cooper is just the Cleveland Browns. I do not believe in Deshaun Watson, but even then, he's wide receiver 38, wide receiver 40, right? Like, it is not too expensive to take a swing on Amari Cooper. And when Joe Flacco was in last year, I mean, he was so impressive. We even had the 51.5-point game, 11 receptions for 265 yards and 2 touchdowns. He still clearly has it at his 30-year-old age. It's just more of a question of the quarterback, and also, I guess, another question of Jerry Jeudy. But if this contract holdout does let him leave, I would love Amari Cooper at his current price tag. And even then, I'll still take some shots on him. And buy him maybe for the right price. Like, if you could get him for a second, I think that's about where I'm at, especially if you're a contending team. Like, a late second is probably more so where I'm at with this. Maybe a couple thirds to do it. Or like in this range, like maybe like a Deontay Johnson. But even then, it's looking like he's going to be pretty solid this season. So it's a tough one. Like, he's in that range where it's a little tough to buy him, but also he's a really good wide receiver. And hopefully the Browns do take a step forward in this pass game this year, especially with the less than 100% Nick Chubb. So I would say at his price, he's kind of a buy. Kind of a buy. More so a hold. Kind of a buy. Which leads us to we have 2 bits of discussion now. We'll move on to the Arizona Cardinals, as there's some interesting stuff coming out around their weapons. Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing conveyed his confidence in the group with an idea that would certainly confuse opposing defenses. Says NFL writer, we're going to petition the league for 2 footballs at all times, Petzing joked to reporters Thursday. No, but like you said, it's a variety of skill sets. It's guys that do different things well, so it allows us to be multiple and allows us to attack the defense in different ways, because you never know exactly week to week where the weakness is and what you'll need to exploit. And if you have everybody doing one thing really well, that's not the matchup that week. It's hard to adjust. That's certainly going to be a part of who we are and a part of who we always want to be in all facets. I said this to Kyler because sometimes the quarterback can feel that pressure. Oh, I got to get this guy the ball. That's not your job. That's my job. As a coach, we can dictate some of that, and we'll try to. Your job is to play the play. Whatever the look is, go where the ball needs to go. Make the decision that needs to be made. Don't worry about that stuff. I think based on the character of the guys that we kind of talked about in this room, I don't really worry about that. So it sounds like to me the Cardinals' plan this offseason is, of course, to spread the ball around. They want Greg Dortch to have weeks. They want Michael Wilson to have weeks. They want Trey McBride to have weeks. They want Marvin Harrison to have weeks. They want James Conner and Trey Benson to have weeks. Drew Petzing is going to, scheme on a week-to-week basis like plenty NFL teams do. But it also just sounds like he has a little bit more trust than a lot of coordinators and some of the more, role-playing players as well. Like for him to say, like, hey, we just spent this super high draft pick on Marvin Harrison Jr., but we don't want to give him the ball every single play. We want to make sure that the open player gets the ball, or the player that's schemed open for, that the play is designed for gets the ball. And I just think that that is really, really good news, not only for Kyler Murray, but also the rest of the pass catchers on here, and even the expensive ones. I am buying every Arizona Cardinal. I'm just going to say it. The only one I'm a little questionable on is Trey McBride, just because he's like a top 3 tight end, but I also don't see his value dropping much further. So I'll go ahead and buy Trey McBride too. Here are their keep trade cut values. Kyler Murray, quarterback 11, Trey McBride, tight end 2, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 5, Michael Wilson, wide receiver 72, Greg Dortch, wide receiver 90, James Conner, running back 39, and Trey Benson, RB 15. I mean, I think that this Cardinals offense is going to be top of the league. This is a star-studded cast in a shootout division with a very, very good quarterback. I feel like we are sleeping not only on Kyler Murray, but the rest of this offense. Like, I don't understand, for example, why Trey McBride is tight end 2 and Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 5. But Kyler Murray is outside of the top 10. I mean, how is he supposed to have 2 top 5 weapons, a really good offensive line, and not be a highly sought-after dynasty asset? Kyler Murray is incredible. And so I am buying him and the rest of the pass catchers here. They're all values. Even Marvin Harrison Jr., we've talked about it. I think that he could finish as the wide receiver 1 as a rookie. Like, he had so many targets going to him this year. Trey McBride can repeat as well as a very high-producing tight end. And Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson are going to have their weeks. Greg Dortch, a starting slot receiver at wide receiver 90. What a steal. Michael Wilson, a starting wide receiver 2 with a very productive rookie season. Wide receiver 72. I mean, these are values, guys. The running backs, James Conner. I mean, he's done nothing but produce in his career at RB 39. And Trey Benson, RB 15, is going to be a bell cow when James Conner is gone. And plus, James Conner hasn't really ever been able to stay healthy. Everyone on this offense is a buy and will outproduce, or at the very least, produce at their cost. Get these Cardinals while you can. Hashtag Birdgate. The last bit of information we have for you guys revolves around Puka Nacua, who says he is also building on an impressive rookie season and is ready to smash in year 3. Puka Nacua says some stuff. But first, Rams wide receiver coach Eric Yarber says the first thing I wanted him to do is hold on to Cooper Kupp's coattails and train with him and do everything he does. And he took that to heart. Over the offseason, Puka Nacua has spent time training alongside Cooper Kupp inside the Rams facility and is turning heads at camp. Wide receiver coach Yarber said his body is totally different. He looks just like Cooper. He's lost so much body fat and gained so much lean muscle, which has enabled him to move more efficiently now, and he has even better body control. But he did exactly what I said, and you're seeing some of the results right now. In Sarah Barshup's piece for ESPN, she detailed how closely Nacua followed in Kupp's footsteps, including 6 a.m. workouts that initially were so difficult, Puka Nacua vomited on Cooper Kupp's lawn during the first week. Eventually, though, Nacua worked his way toward Kupp standard, earning commendation from his veteran teammate. Kupp said he kept coming back, he kept showing up on time, ready to go, with a great attitude and ready to get to work. I think that speaks volumes about the guy that Puka is, pushing through some really tough stuff early on, and then being able to just kind of take it in stride and grow. Nacua continued to mirror Kupp throughout the offseason, adjusting his diet significantly and dropping roughly 10 pounds. Now he's moving better and seems to be in better control of his body, which should produce even better results in his second season. Yarber said, I've just seen him work on his weaknesses. Some of his weaknesses were his body control, and he's learned how to control his body, and he learned how to fall, learned how to torque his body, and he learned how to cut off the correct foot every single time. He's way more fundamentally sound. There was obviously a lot of accolades that came with the production that he had, but that's been accompanied with authentic humility, says head coach Sean McVay. I've seen a guy that's really continuing to become even more of a pro, taking care of his body, getting on a more disciplined diet, the way that he's come out here and worked hard, the way he's just so receptive to coaching, but also earning our confidence. Puka Nacua, guys. I mean, that's some good information. When you are hearing everything about that, that is incredible. Two things can be taken away here, and I think Harry Snowman is saying it. I was reading that Cooper Kupp was in the best shape of his life. Now it makes a little bit more sense. These two wide receivers are pushing each other. Iron sharpens iron to an incredible degree, and we are going to see two top 15 wide receiver seasons from both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. It is going to be an incredible year from both of these guys, and Puka Nacua, I am very excited to see what he can do in year 2. I'm not going to lie. I have not been totally sold at his value right now. Wide receiver 6, wide receiver 8, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 7, right? It is like, it's a little high. And I am a huge Cooper Kupp believer. You can go check out the Player Profiler TikTok right now. I posted one this morning talking about how we need to buy him. Cooper Kupp actually out-targeted Puka Nacua in terms of 10 or more target games when they're on the field together. Puka Nacua had 4 of those games. Cooper Kupp had 4 of those games. Puka Nacua only had 3 such, which is, of course, still awesome. These guys are going to get a ton of volume. These are the wide receivers on the Rams. And to just hear that they are still, both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, heavily attacking this offseason, working out 6 a.m., throwing up on yards. That's exactly what you want to hear. There's more than just breakfast now going on with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. There's just so much. Puka Nacua is truly developing into a pro's pro, and Cooper Kupp is a huge part of that. And it's also sounding like we can't bury the lead here. We can't. Cooper Kupp is a big part of this. It should also go without saying that Cooper Kupp is probably also in the best shape of his life, also working incredibly hard, also improving this offseason. So I'm just very excited about this Rams offense in general. I have like 70% exposure to Cooper Kupp right now on Underdog. I just can't stop drafting him. Matthew Stafford is an incredible, incredible value, like quarterback 25. So much value to be had on this offense. It's really incredible stuff. And Puka Nacua, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm sold at his value. I guess I can't really say I'm necessarily going out to buy him. There are probably some wide receivers in that range that I would like to, like if I had Tyreek Hill, I'd see what I could add to get Puka Nacua. If I had Garrett Wilson, I'd be looking for a swap, right? If I had Chris Olave, I'd be looking for a swap. That's kind of where I'm at here. If I had maybe Devon Achane, I'd probably be looking for a Puka Nacua. Brandon Aiyuk from earlier. What can you add to Brandon Aiyuk to get Puka Nacua? Because even if he is valued this highly, I still feel like you can get him a little bit cheaper than that, to be completely honest with you, just because of how cheap he was last season. I feel like a lot of Dynasty managers still have that valued into their head just a little bit. So either way, gaining a ton of confidence, attacking the offseason the right way. Sounds like this Rams offense is ready to shock some people, and Puka Nacua is ready to build upon his record-setting rookie season in year 2. Guys, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Just good morning to everyone. Seriously. Ryan has a question. Hey, Jason, I asked this question to Onid yesterday on the Scott Fishbowl Podthon, and he wasn't sure. Is Player Profiler doing Scott Fishbowl rankings again this year? As far as I am aware, not only are we having Scott Fishbowl rankings, they are supposed to be released today. Now, of course, that the key word there is supposed to be, but our head of data, Dario Offstein, did send out a little bit of an analytics report to us directors this weekend. It said that he plans to have them finish Monday, but of course there could be some other stuff setting it back. But either way, I would probably just go ahead and say that it should be out this week before the draft. So get ready for some Scott Fishbowl rankings for sure coming from Player Profiler. Let's see. Is anyone else against the Hawk but Pro Tour? I don't want anyone spitting boogers on me. I'll go on. I'll go on. Mike asked, do you think I can win the chip with Goff and Deshaun Watson? I do not. I do not. I think you need to trade Deshaun Watson for Bryce Young or something, or just try or maybe one of these rookie quarterbacks, see if you could get a Drake May, a JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, maybe. You need to take a swing on a quarterback with upside. Deshaun Watson, I think, has lost it personally. That's a me thing. So anyway, Paul says, thanks for being here every day. It may not seem like much, but I'm recovering from the Spencer, Iowa flood, and your broadcast has been something that is normal in my abnormal world. Paul, thank you so much for taking time out of your, I'm sure, very stressful day to tune in. I'm happy that I can be a big part of helping you out in this trying time. I wish you all the best in the recovery from this flood. Sounds like a horrible situation to be going through. So, my condolences out to you and really everyone out in Spencer, Iowa. I've not really been hearing too much about that, but sounds like a terrible situation. Hope it gets better for you, man. Thanks for tuning in. Mark says he likes all those wide receivers you mentioned better than Puka. I guess. I don't know. I am not sold on Garrett Wilson anymore. I'm just not and Chris Olave is what he is too. They're both 1,000-yard receivers, and that's fine. But Puka Nacua, we saw he's a 1,500-yard receiver. That's just where my head's at, especially with Cooper Kupp retiring in 3 seasons, right? I think that it's time to move on from a Garrett Wilson, a Tyreek Hill at the end of his career, a Chris Olave, these wide receivers that Tyreek Hill, for example, he's shown his ceiling, but he's on his way out, I think. And then Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, they've shown who they are at this point. And that is a really, really good wide receiver, but not like a Hall of Fame type wide receiver that Puka Nacua is kind of on track to be. And I'm not even a big Puka Nacua guy. I'm really not. But I just, what we've seen from him is just undeniable. I'm a huge Matthew Stafford guy. And Sean McVay's young too. I don't think he's going anywhere. So I'm going to keep buying into this Rams offense every single year, to be completely honest with you. And that starts with Puka Nacua. It seems like big future of that organization. But anyway, that should do it. Every question in the chat answered, unless there's one over here on Instagram. Never mind, I never pressed the go by button on Instagram. Oopsies. So anyway, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Go ahead and follow Player Profiler wherever you get your social media, as well as hitting that like button to this video and subscribing to Player Profiler and the Player Profiler News YouTube's great content coming out daily on both places as we help prepare you to win your fantasy football championships this season. Make sure you follow me on social media at JFootballWine, wherever you get it. And of course, you all have a magnificent Monday, a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.